If you've ever engaged in small talk as a sub 5, then you know how awkward it can be. In most cases, you will be the one fighting to keep the conversation going. You will be asking all the questions. You will be telling the funny stories. And you will be the one who loses everyone's interest once Chad enters the room and takes over. So, I got inspired to make this week's video because I was at my college a week ago, sitting inside this computer lab. It's a classroom typically, but anytime a class isn't being held there, people come in and use it as a workstation, which is what I was doing. To help you understand the layout of the space, it has 2 rows of about 7 computers each. So there's 7 computers in the front row and 7 in the back. I walk in the door and I see this girl who I'm acquainted with, but I wouldn't call her a close friend. When I entered, and keep in mind the door makes a sound when you open it, she didn't look at me. She didn't look to see who was coming in the room. She didn't turn away from her screen. She just didn't say anything. So naturally, I saw her in the front row on the extreme left-hand side, and I decided to sit in the back row on the extreme right-hand side. I sit down, turn the computer on, and start doing what I need to do. And a couple minutes later, the door opens again. And in walks this complete mental cell. I'm not saying that to bully him. I know this guy is actually autistic because I've met him before, but he comes in, he sees all the empty seats there, and decides to take the spot right fucking next to the girl. And when he does, he turns to her and tries to, start a conversation. And this is how his voice sounds. He's like, "Hey, how's it going? Do you mind if I sit here?" And the girl, I can tell, is trying her best to be polite to this dude. So she says, "Oh yeah, go right ahead." So he takes the seat. I don't even know if this motherfucker had homework to do. He just looked like he was screwing around. But he starts talking to her, asking her questions about the assignment she's working on, and her responses are short and to the point. When you see a Chad have a conversation with somebody, they will never ask a question and then get a one-word response to that question. In fact, the person, especially if they are a Chad-struck Stacy, will answer that question in essay format and proceed to ask Chad 2 more questions in return. Meanwhile, this sub 5 mental cell is here throwing out question after question like he's playing fucking LA Noire, interrogating a crime suspect. He's prodding and prodding, looking for that one conversational thread that's gonna get her to open up, but he's not finding it. And eventually he says, "I'm not bothering you, am I?" I had headphones on at the time, but I took those bitches off as soon as I heard that leave his mouth. If you've ever had to say that, ever, at all, there should be no doubt in your mind that you were a sub 5. The sad thing is, this guy is legitimately autistic, and even he can tell it's over. Thankfully, the girl didn't blow him out of the water. She told him that she told him that he wasn't bothering her. She was lying, obviously, but if she had told him the truth, I have no doubt in my mind that within 2 days, this guy would be subscribed to every blackpill channel on YouTube. After that, he started telling her some story about how his family took him to see one of the Jurassic Park movies when he was a kid. And he was talking about Super Nintendo World at fucking Universal Studios. I actually want to go to that shit, not gonna lie. But he's dumping all this information on her. And she keeps going like, "Yeah, yep, oh, uh-huh, oh, really? Wow, oh, wow, oh, wow, really? Wow." Clearly not interested whatsoever. And by then, I had had enough, really, so I did a quick speed run through my work and got the hell out of there. Honestly, that was pretty good motivation to finish ahead of schedule because it was so brutal to watch from the outside looking in. And it got me thinking about all the times the times I tried to engage in small talk only for it to crash and burn. When I interact with strangers in my day-to-day life, it's typically like a 10-second interaction with a retail worker at a store, so I can manage that pretty easily. I can ask them 1 or 2 questions about how their day's going, the weather, so on and so forth, and it's not awkward. However, the problem arises when I go to parties and social events. And I remember years ago, my friend would invite me to these like get-togethers that would happen at somebody's house. Back when I was super shy, I would have said no and refused to come altogether. But I got more confident in the years I studied pickup and game. Around this time, I was binge watching videos from those RSD guys who would go into nightclubs and talk to women. They'd say the dumbest shit possible, but to their audience, who were like mostly naive guys with little experience, it looked as if what they were doing was effective. And you approach a circle of girls standing by the bar and say something ridiculous for shock value. Then, according to real social dynamics, the girls are supposed to be so turned on by your game and confidence that they go home with you. That's my face and LMS impression. So, I tried my best to play that game. At these social events, I would walk up to people, introduce myself. I had a couple funny one-liners saved in my head to break the ice. I would make jokes, tell stories, and even gesture max a little bit as needed. But one thing I started to realize was I could hold someone's attention for about a minute when I walked up to them. But eventually, their eyes would start to drift somewhere else, and they'd walk away. So I'd repeat the process. I'd go over to a group of people that were standing in a circle, because that's what you do at parties, I guess. Everyone just stands in a fucking circle and drinks. I'd approach these groups and stand there looking for an opportunity to join the conversation. Then eventually, whenever I got one, I'd chime in, I'd make my comment or my joke or whatever, and they'd be like, oh yeah, this guy's here. And then they continue as if I wasn't. And I kept finding myself just standing in the corner, endlessly sipping on whatever drink I was holding, looking around the room, checking my phone, doing whatever I could do, not to face the fact that I was a loser who couldn't socialize with anyone. I would always wonder too, why is it that I keep having people walk away from me to talk to someone else, and I never end up being that someone else? I couldn't get that out of my head. And it's made worse when you observe guys who clearly aren't being jesters. They aren't running game. They're not making jokes every 5 seconds. The stories they tell are either uninteresting or they're told in a way that isn't very entertaining to listen to. But yet when these guys speak, people listen. People pay attention. People gravitate towards them. And when you don't know about the black pill, all you can do is gaslight yourself and say, oh, he must have really good game. That's what it is. I'm just not trying hard enough. And when you think like this, you're just making yourself depressed. Only when you realize the importance of looks can you understand and rationalize the treatment that you get. Then you figure out why no one wants to talk to you. When you're on a bus, you figure out why nobody acts friendly. When you're at the sports bar or at the gym, all those places that you go to. And it sucks. It's unfair, but it's a reality we have to accept. If you have the ability to looks max, I honestly believe that will be twice as beneficial for your social life than trying to memorize pickup lines, icebreakers, and other bullshit like that. If you talk to someone and you pick up on the fact that they're giving you one-word answers, they're not listening, and they're not looking at you, then you know what it is. Disengage and don't say hi to people that don't say hi to you. Side note, that's another thing I started doing after I became black-pilled. When I meet someone for the first time, I still do the whole confident PUA, walk up and give you a handshake. Nice to meet you. My name is, that. But the thing is, I'll do that one time. I'll only do that one time. I'll see them one time and be as friendly as I possibly can. If I see them in public again and I want to test if they actually like me or not, I'll do this thing where if we haven't locked eyes yet, I'll kind of turn my head away from them and pretend as if I don't know that they're in my immediate vicinity, but I'll still occupy a space that I know they're going to be in. So then at some point they'll be like, oh, hey, is that blank over there? And they'll come up to me and start talking. Then I'm like, oh, okay, they're cool. If I can tell they see me and then they deliberately avoid me or walk around me, don't say anything, don't say hi, don't give me some kind of tap on the shoulder, don't do anything. I'm like, okay, fuck that person. A bit childish, I know, but I think it's a good way of gauging if people actually like having small talk with you or not. And remember, someone's desire to have small talk with you isn't rooted in how good of a talker you are or the quality of your stories. Nope, it's rooted in the same thing that everything else is rooted in. LOOKS.